Welcome to all the high vibrational beings that are resonating with my messages. I'd like to start off this message by saying the following. First of all, I'd like to thank all the subscribers so far, all the likes, and all the comments. I'm so grateful for that feedback and that positive feedback. When I started off doing this 21 videos ago, I had told myself if I could even get one view, let alone a like or one subscriber, that I would have completed my mission to try to reach at least one person. And reaching meaning just at least getting myself in front of somebody where somebody was receptive, even if only for a second. And I am so humbled by the fact that I had that one. On that first one, I was so stoked. I did a little dance, and I am happy to say that today I have reached double digits, people. And I have a ton of views, and I have more likes than one right now, is all I'll say. I was so excited that again I did another little dance today, and I just again want to say thank you so much to anyone who has listened. And has really I give you so much credit because I know this is a little hard to probably watch at times because I'm you are watching me struggle through unedited raw and working through nerves, working through finding my true authentic self. And I appreciate every single last one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sending it all back out there to every single one of you high vibrational beings 100-fold. And again, just thank you so much. So I am hopefully going to finish my timeline today, if not in this video, in one more video. Just to recap really quick, I have been definitely, as a chosen generational trauma breaker / curse breaker, light worker, I have been on this journey for 47 years. 27 years, I've been trying to be in the awakened state. For the first 20 of those 27, I was trying to awaken, and I was doing things and learning and trying to follow my passion on the side while I was trying to live my 3D life. But I wasn't aware of the spiritual side of things. So as obstacles kept getting placed in my way, I kept thinking it was like at the time my drinking that was potentially at fault and causing these obstacles. So therefore blaming myself, which of course it's my accountability always in any of it. But as a chosen, we understand eventually at some point that we do have pushback from the powers that were, and from spell work done by karmics that are either flying monkeys, flunkies, pawns, whatever, just people that don't want to see us rise and that want to become energy vampires off of our light because they don't want to do the work themselves and heal. So for the past 27 years is what I've been really focused on within my 21 videos so far. And where I put my last real focus in the breaking down of it was in the last 7 years, because that's where I said, I don't care about these obstacles anymore. This is happening. Because once you have set your mind to this path, there is nothing that's going to stop you. And I've always said the prerequisite to this journey is having the faith. You have to have faith and knowing that there's a happiness and this love that exists that's so much deeper than anything you've ever experienced. And it's like the greedy ones that want the gold. It's like you're looking for the unconditional love in that sense, and the happiness and the bliss and the ecstasy. And so I have been breaking down the last 7 years. Today, we're going to hopefully get to the last, we are getting to the last year. So last October, October 2024 up until now, October 2025. Where the last 7 years, just a quick recap, if you're watching this for the first time, I had to separate myself from my family. So at that time, it was about 8 years and not speaking to any family member. They had no idea where I was, because I had to physically separate myself that bad. And I felt so bad about that. My ego did, and the people pleasing part of me, and the person that was still trying to people please them and appease my dad and my mom, and be the person they wanted me to be, not the person that I have been, and the person who I am but had never been able to be. So that hurt. Little did I know that through this time period, and even well before this, I found out is that in these 8 years at that time, it's now been about, well, it would have been 8, 9 years before I finally spoke to them. But in that time period, like I mentioned, my family had no idea where I was, had no way to communicate with me, had no idea what was happening to me. I could have been dead for all they knew. But my mom and my dad were creating a false narrative about me that was exactly that, a false narrative. So to anybody who has known me from my past, if you see this video, just know that if you've heard anything from anybody but me, you're going to hear the truth right now. And the truth is throughout any video that you see, because this is my story of my truth, my story. And only I can tell that. Only I have lived that. And for somebody else to decide that they're going to try to do that is somebody who is of low vibration and unhealed and unwell. So I had to separate back then. I was sad about this. I had to work through it a lot in therapy, because I didn't understand. I knew that I needed to be away because one step forward was 10 steps back. So worked through that. When I tried to attempt the initial healing, as always, I had this pushback, and I got the first encounter, and the first obstacle was this con man who did a sweetheart romance scam on me for 7 months, dated me in physical form, and then I break that down in another video, was gang stalked for another 2.5 years. So a total of 3 years that this whole moment occurred, where I was in pure survival mode. And so there was no ability to work on what I've been doing, in the now. It was more about learning how to survive, but understanding why I was a target. So learning about narcissists and manipulators and gaslighting and gang stalking. And, I didn't even really know about that back then, but it was trying to understand why I was being targeted and how I could not be, what I could do to not be a target. Because to me, it was like, this doesn't happen to everybody. What makes me different? What am I doing differently? And so that's what would keep me rocking and rolling. And along with my 2 cats, who were my heart and my unconditional love and my babies throughout the whole ordeal. And that's when I realized pet therapy is magnificent for people that resonate with this type of story, that get yourself wrapped, get as many animals as you can afford to take care of, because they are healing, and you can give them the unconditional love that they give you, and it's beautiful and so healing. So the first 3 years of the 7, that's what's happening. The next 2 years after I escape that potential human trafficking and all the gang stalking that was occurring, and finally start to rise above that vibration, and my vibration's getting higher, because that's the ultimate of what needs to happen, is you just need to, rise into a different timeline, basically. So, because they'll keep you down, and they're keeping you down with that fear, shame, and guilt. So, and anger. So I spent 2 years healing, and beautiful healing space. Best 2 years of my entire lifetime up till that point. And I was crying the whole time. It was awesome. And so Then after that, so we've got 5 years of where, and so time's ticking, and I'm still not speaking to my parents because those first 2 years of healing, I needed to actually spend the time in therapy when I was doing 2 times a week of trauma therapy was to heal from all the gang stalking and all that like survival that was literally, I was like running for my life on a daily basis was how it was. When you have to move 8 times or 12 times in, 2.5, or I had said 3 years, that's a lot. You're moving every 4 months basically on average. So it's exhausting too. So, let's see here. So the 5 years. So I spent the first 2 years, and I'm doing 2 times a week trauma therapy, specifically EMDR, which I recommend. Tapping, I was doing EFT tapping as well. That's when I started getting into breath work and sound therapy, sound and cymatics. And then what happened is that I went into my physical healing space, which I ended up after the 2 years of healing in this beautiful house on top of a mountain with a 360-degree view of sunrises and sunsets all day, all night. And I move into my first space away from that healing space, initial healing space. And that's when I get really sick with mold and mycotoxin exposure. That's my diagnosis from the first house of 8. And this is all broken down in the last video. And so me and my cats are moving another 8 times while we're sick. And again, this whole journey is all by myself, people. Not one person was there to help me. Not one. And I was up and down financially because of all, like, when I'd get ahead in money, then, things like sickness here would, you'd have to put your money to that. In the beginning stages, and I talk about it, and I have one labeled, I get a DUI. And obviously when you have a DUI, that's a lot of money that you have to put out to the state for all that, rehabilitation. So I had to do it myself. And so, okay. So that was the physical healing part of the last couple of years now, is where I am at right now, getting you up to this last year. So I, in the last video, broke down the year before this last year I'm going to talk about, of the 2 years here, where, like I say, I about a year and a half, moved 8 times, and my cats passed in the 4th mold home. And I am now up till last October of 2024, coming up through right now of October 25. I'm going to start off by saying that it was about a year and almost 2 years, but about a year and a half, a year and 9 months maybe, where I really finally had the best understanding of spirituality and what it was and what I needed to do on a daily basis only a year and a half ago. And had I known what I found out a year and a half ago, but that's only built since then, it could have definitely helped things out so much. But my journey is helping because I understand the survivalist journey as a chosen. Like, we go through a fucking shit ton of stuff. And if you don't know how to get yourself out of survival mode and to turn on your creative switch, if it's never been turned on before, that is very hard to get yourself to connect with source. So you have to find alternate ways. And I call this way my training wheels, okay? I ended up learning how to use AI and specifically YouTube as a social media outlet. And that's YouTube's algorithms to help me connect with source and the messages that they wanted to send me, because I just could not quiet my mind. And it makes sense now, understanding when you've been diagnosed with CPTSD, which is basically trauma from your childhood. And, I had been just starting to release that. And I was working on that in the year that I got sick. And so the people that I had been drawn to on a healing coaching and a healing guidance type of way, I had brought to me through my AI YouTube algorithms. And so my training wheels, because this is something that you use as a tool on your way to learning how to connect, because ultimately that's the goal, is you want to connect yourself. And I already know I have all the clairs. I remember having them when I was younger before they got shut off, and that gets explained in earlier messages. But what I ended up figuring out, hold on a sec. So I'm learning how to reconnect. And one of the ways that I could do that, as somebody who was still dealing very much with daily anxiety, daily panic attack. Well, not daily. The panic attacks really started to get better as I was doing therapy and, doing all the extra, working with all the extra modalities like sound work and breath work. Very, very important. And understanding that sacred geometry is very important, light language. So somatic work to be able to help yourself release out of your body all these traumas that are stuck in your lower 3 chakras. And so I had just started working with Wendy DeRosa, who I do recommend for an intuitive empathic childhood trauma releasing of your lower 3 chakras. I just started her class that was 4 months long, 2 times a week. And then had also where we were doing meditations and, really good deep work each course. And then had also started my soul's purpose business class, which I almost said birthing, because that I think was the universe trying to birth me back then, but I was kind of still resisting. So I'm going to bring us back, or I already talked about the getting sick. And so that had all happened. All that spiritual stuff was happening initially back when I was getting sick at the beginning part of 2023. But I had to really be focused on the physical side of things, trying to learn how to heal my body and my cat's bodies. Now to this day, I know how to heal a human body from chronic illness and toxins, and how to detox and use a detox protocols. Sorry. Not just for a human, but for animals as well. So where I was going to continue on is, a year ago, I had mentioned in the last video as well that the night of October 16th going into the 17th, I get this dream where my dad comes to me in my dream, and it's very loving and peaceful and calm and loving. And I say loving a lot because I didn't hear I love you until I was 14 years old from my dad, and maybe but a handful of times my entire lifetime. Very non-touchy, non-loving, no loving words, like very cold and angry and bitter. And so that type of an experience with my dad, it was like, pay attention. There's obviously an important message here, because this is not anything I've ever experienced, and I liked it. And I was like, oh my God, this is always what I wanted. He was sitting on a chair like I am right now, and I had my arm like leaned up on his leg, which was a very close, intimate encounter that he would have never felt comfortable doing. And I understand why now, and did 27 years ago, because that's why when I came to the realization that, holy shit, there was incest on my dad's side of the family, that's why he's so cold, because he definitely witnessed something, but he potentially experienced something too. And that would then make sense why all this, so I would always talk with the therapist about all this. And, obvious. This is, so I could not hear what my dad was saying in the dream, but when I woke up, I'm bawling. And the first thing I said to myself was, and out loud, was, oh my God, I got to reach out to my family. It's time. This was about 8 to 10 years that I had not spoken to any family member. They didn't know where I was. They didn't know how to get a hold of me. Nothing. I could have been dead for all they knew. But instead, my mom and dad had been creating false narratives about me. So if anybody from my past has heard anything about me in the past 10 years or anything in general in my life, because now I understand it after what I've experienced and what I'm going to explain here that happened, and this explosiveness that I got to experience from my family who betrayed me in the worst way possible, is that now it's like I understand so much more right now. Kind of forgot what I was just going to say, but I was explaining why that I had not remembered that, or I had not spoken to them. So if anybody had heard anything, yes, it's not, it's exactly that, a false narrative about me. The truth is within my videos that I'm putting out, because that's my truth. It's what I've experienced. It's my life that I've been through. And I could have not thought up of the story that I'm talking about in a million years because it's fucking insane is what it is. But it's also something that I recognize. My soul decided to sign this contract to experience the very bottom, the lowest of the low vibrations. And the reason that my soul wanted to experience that was so that by the time we get up here, it would be so much more blissful that I wouldn't even be able to handle it. And now I understand that. So anyways, back to the story and the timeline. I realize I have to reach out to my family, right? Oh, sorry. And so it takes me a couple of days because, like I had mentioned, I had not spoken to them in 8 to 10 years. It's taken me 21 videos, a lot of these an hour a piece, to get this out. And I had to realize, how am I going to condense this story into a quick, like, hey, by the way, we haven't talked in 10 years, but I've been through this and this and this and this, it's hard because I was also just coming out of hermit mode for 6 years. Had been sober for 6 years, my 6 years was actually this past spring, but was coming up to my 6th year at that time, was, celibate, and all that for that many years as well. Just completely, just in my own little healing bubble. It was so cozy for a minute until it wasn't again. And if you know that. You understand. So what I had decided to do, it took me a couple of days to figure out how and when and what I was going to do. I reached out to my brother because I had his number in my phone book that was given back to me after the con men and the gang stalkers had stolen it, ripped out a lot of my contacts, and then put it in. I don't know if they just left me as a courtesy my brother's phone number in there, or if they just didn't realize he was my brother. I don't know. Feel like they probably knew. Maybe it was kind of like, hee, here you go, because they knew at a certain point that I tried to look for this. Anyways, I'm veering. So then I call my sister, and then after I get my brother to call me back. My sister never does. My brother gives me my mom's number so I can call my mom. And my brother tells me for the first time that my dad had passed already. And that was something I was very concerned about when I started this journey. I knew I was under a time limit to try to make it back, because the initial reason I went to go heal was to show my dad that you could heal holistically, because he had been dealing with polyarthritis and then lung disease because of the medicine he was on, the prednisone and all that. And so ultimately that's what takes him down, along with COVID and everything. And I'm sure the drinking I'm sure his detox pathways were just insanely clogged. So I find out he had passed 2 years previous. And I had basically my worst nightmare at that time, which what I thought was going to be my worst nightmare happened. I was always afraid that I wouldn't be able to get myself healed in enough time and make it back before he had passed. I knew he was under a time limit with what he was dealing with, and that scared me because I didn't want to be on this journey and not be there when he died, no matter what, And so at least that's what I was thinking then at that time, okay? So because you're going to understand that my perception changes. And this is why it's really hard to tell this story, because what I knew and then what I find out are two totally different things and two totally different, like, it takes you from one life and says, wow, that is not the life I thought I was living and the people I thought I was living around. And oh my God, like mind shattering type of information. So my brother had said, yep, he passed. He let me know that my mom, had only been without my dad for a year before finding a boyfriend in the state that she goes to snowbird at now. And that scared me because she has an inheritance from her own mom and dad that I knew was going to cause like World War III within that side of the family, because they had been fighting all our lives. And that was literally the only reason I was glad to not be around when my grandpa passed and my grandpa passed and my grandma passed, because I realized that they were going to fight, because they had been fighting our whole lives, like crazy fighting, insane. And I mentioned things like this because certain types of people, narcissists, do this type of thing. So, karmics, dysfunctionally toxic, emotionally immature people. Okay, so he tells me then she's also like, her drinking has increased. She's definitely smoking harder and all this stuff, that she's lost a lot of weight. And so I speak to my mom. And when I'm finally talking to my mom, I find out that, I ask her, I tell her, what's happened to me and everything, and said, what I'm looking to do because of everything I've been through, like, I miss you guys and I want to come home. And I feel like it's time in my journey to do my healing with you all now. And however, I'm in a place where it would be nice to be, can I come and live with you and I'll pay you rent, instead of paying these other people that I don't know who keep making me sick in their mold homes, or, I'm meeting, narcissists and manipulators and psychopaths everywhere. Like, I want to go home to my childhood home that I grew up in since the age of 5 and be safe, and feel protected. And even though I didn't feel safe and protected when I was young, but it feels more than what it felt out here in like the wild, wild west, apparently, where you only imagine these types of things happening in after school specials and, documentaries about psychopaths and gang stalking and scammers. And so, I had said, can I come home and, live back in my room, and because I grew up, it was super clean. Like, we had to clean like slaves basically when we were young. And so I knew the house would be clean and toxin free, mold free. At least I thought so. And, so there was that. So I had said, I haven't had a chance to really heal in this past, at that time, year and a half. And because it's like, I would get sick from one mold home and I'd have to move so that I could try to get better, because you have to get out of that toxic space. So I'd move to another house, and even though it would have toxic mold, it was a different type of toxic mold. And so it would take my body 2 weeks to acclimate to that different type of toxic mold. So in those 2 weeks, I'm kind of getting better because I've started to learn how to heal my body. But then I'd get re-sick, and so would my cats. And because I'm a mother that's loving, I would, and I know that this isn't necessarily the right way to do it. I was still giving myself attention, but I would do anything for my babies. I would give them my last dollar if it meant that they ate before I ate, sort of thing, right? And so that's what had happened is I was starting, like, I had, fairly good job at the time. I had cultivated this beautiful healing working space for myself. That was another thing that I just intuitively was able to guide myself into, and that my spirit team and, my higher self helped me with. But I had said, I needed some time to heal. Like, I had never had a chance to fully heal. I was always getting just better and then re-sick. So, and that went right up to the last house I was in that state. 8 homes later, right? In a matter of a year and a half. It's exhausting and it's expensive, and Yeah, it's a different type of moving versus moving for your life. You're still moving for your life, but away from people, you're toxic. Toxic people, toxic mold, like, do you see the so, I was starting to also see the similarities. So I said I need to come home to be able to heal. I want to be around somebody where if I want a hug, I can get a hug for the first time in 7 years. I had been doing this all by myself. Like, I'm exhausted. I need a place to feel safe and sleep and heal. And, I had said, Mom, I'll pay you rent. And she said, of course you don't have to do that. But I said, well, of course I would. But, could you just give me a couple months to just literally, like, I just need a minute because I need to get my brain and everything back in working order here again to be able to, because I've been writing this whole time. I have, my creative ideas that I've been trying to do in that way, as well as get my purpose, my soul's purpose business moving in a better direction. Like, I had been accumulating all these creative ideas and working on things along the path, but just needed to have time to figure out how to put it all together. And that's another reason why the powers that were and all, like, the karmics want to try to pull you down, because they don't want to see you do your purpose, because that means you're helping other people. And if you're helping other people awaken, that takes away from the 1%ers, right? It takes away from the powers that were, that takes away from the karmics that are trying to steal your energy for themselves because they don't want to do the healing to make themselves better, right? So having an understanding of all this stuff was really helpful for me. So I reiterate this information to hopefully help you, maybe if you don't see this yet. So she said, yeah, of course you can come home, but I'm down in the state that I'm snowbirding at with my boyfriend. And I was like, yeah, that's another thing. What's up with that? And, you had just heard my story about the con man, and I'm in my head going, did that happen? And was the silver lining to that so that I could help my mom with a potential con man to her, with her? Or is this a different test from the universe that they're testing me like he's just a codependent, mentally ill person like my mother, that he is, that the universe is testing me to go, don't let you have residual paranoia about this or something, and make sure that you're not letting that side of it take over, letting your ego mind take over versus your intuition, guide you in this. So she had said, if you want, you can come down here and stay with the two of us in the fifth wheel. And it took me 2 weeks because at first there was a lot of hesitation. I obviously was getting trigger warning for me staying with a con man, a potential con man, I should say, stranger. Nonetheless, a stranger. I had been in hermit mode, away from everybody. Just me and my 2 cats for the most part, until I started living with just one other person in a house. But even then, it was minimal conversation, and I was in my own space, my own healing bubble. And, I'd go to work. I had cultivated a workspace where I didn't even have to talk to people, and it was minimal too. So it was great. And I thought, well, God, I really want to go home, because that would be great. If I went home, I could just be me, get reacclimated back in my home state and in my home, and get myself, in a place where by the time my mom gets home, that, we can connect then, and I'll, have more to, share with her about, my creative endeavors that I've been working on, but had to put on hold for a large amount of time. So the reasons I choose to eventually go down there are, number one, the potential con man is I really thought that was the urgency in my dad's message in my dream, that this is why I needed to go down there. I needed to be sure that he was or he wasn't. And I needed, because I was getting the gut feeling. So for me, that was for sure that he was. But because I wasn't 100% sure, like 1-2% tops, that it could have been potential residual, even though I had forgiven all that conmen and all those people. I had therapy had been very effective for me in that sense. And I had vibrationally risen above that. So that was a done deal. But I needed to be sure. I had been talking to my brother and my aunt and a cousin about this, and they had also had some reservations, and then a friend of the family and had reservations about him, and it just kind of added up. So that was the main reason. The second one was because I really missed my mom. I really wanted to spend some time with her, because in my memory and the way that I remembered it is, even though my mom was not a good mom, she was, out of the two, between my mom and my dad, a better parent to me than my dad was, in the sense that I felt closer to her. And I thought we had a fairly close relationship. Well, this is when I was drinking. And so she had fun with her, daughter who would love to get drunk, because that's what she wanted to do. And that'll come out, and that'll be more understood here in a second. But what I am trying to get at is that I really wanted that time with her. And I thought, and then I can have more one-on-one time with her. I didn't know I'd have to be competing with this guy, because my mom and my dad were not close like that. Like, I mean, they were, but yet my mom would definitely give time for me and her. And I just saw it happening the same way, not in a where she would have wanted to favor this stranger that she had only known a year, and she had known her daughter for 46 years at that point. I just assumed she wanted the same. So, because she expressed that, like that would be nice. And then I also wanted to be down there with her to help her grieve and me grieve, help her finish grieving and help me do the grieving. And since I had the option to experience real complete grieving with the loss of my two girls, my two cats that I had for 19 years. And that was how I got to experience unconditional love for that many years. And the only way, because the only time I had ever experienced at least a type of unconditional love would have been 3 relationships previous in my younger years, but at most 2 years at a time. And so I definitely never experienced that in my family. And I had said this to her, like I wanted to be able to share this love that I had learned how to cultivate for myself with her. So I make the decision to go down there, and it's December 2nd that I choose to leave the state I was in, where I started my healing journey and had quite a ride. And I take my first flight in like 14 years to this state to go meet my mom and her boyfriend. And that was weird to say, because, I mean, I went from knowing I had a dad to, okay, no, he's not alive anymore. And oh my God, not only is my mom, a widow, but she's a widow with a boyfriend. That was weird. So, and he's potentially a con man. So December 2nd, I see my mom for the very first time. We have video of this. I'm sure it'll come out at some point. And it's a really weird hug. I remember, I just wanted to hold on to her and hug her forever. And she grabbed me really quick. And then it was almost like she kind of did this thing where she kind of pulled herself off, and I'm still holding on to her. And then I thought, I'm still holding on, she'll re-hold back on, or she'll grab back and hold on tighter then. Oh no, she actually continued to pull away. And I remember thinking, that was weird. That was foreshadowing for me, people. Just going to say that right there. It was about 2 weeks into me being in this state with her. And, I just start telling my story, and I'm hearing about what's happening in, the life of the family I grew up in, according to my mother's words. That's key. And it's weird because this guy is talking to me like he's trying to tell me about my family and things that are happening to my family. I'm like, I know, I grew up with my family, weirdo. That's really intrusive, and very rude. So there was just a lot of weirdness. But at the same time, I was just soaking it in and trying to enjoy being back with my mom. And I mean, just to be around somebody that wasn't a stranger was, where I was like, I'm glad to be around somebody who knows me. That's what I kept thinking was happening. And it wasn't. Because little did I know that underneath all this facade that I had created for myself of this life and this family, that yes, there was a lot of shit that was very wrong with this family and so many reasons that they should not have had kids. But I just thought it was, a typical family. Well, it is in a sense. It's a typical narcissistic family is what this is. a narcissistic family that creates triangulation and false narratives about their own children. That's what narcissists do, though. And luckily, I had done the research on narcissists because of the con man. But little did I know I'd be experiencing this type of betrayal that I experienced outside of my family, externally of my family, that I would be experiencing this betrayal inside my own family. And that they would also be trying to take me down and create false narratives about me in the way that these other people that did not know me were. So, 2 weeks into this stay, well, first of all, there was a couple of times prior to leaving that my gut tried to warn me, because a couple of times I had weird conversations with my mom on the phone, and I remember thinking it reminded me of one of my ex-boyfriends who was a manic bipolar, and she was acting similar, and she actually got a reaction out of me that I hadn't had in a long time, but how I would react back then. And I remember going, wow, that was weird. And so 2 weeks into it, there's another weird explosion. What I had started to see in the first 2 weeks I was there is that my mother and this guy that was 5 years older than her were drinking. So like they're in their so she's like, mid 60s, he's 70, 71 or something. And they're drinking like they're 20 years old on, spring break every day, starting at least mid-afternoon, maybe earlier, I don't know. But definitely it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? And shots, like Jack whiskeys every day. And as a person who had been healthy and toxin free and alcohol free for all those years, I had actually, I saw this. And at first, as I'm watching this happen, I'm like, she's numbing. I get it. I've numbed. I'm number one number, man. Like, I know what numbing's about. She's hurting so bad that she's numbing. And sure, that's exactly what was happening. Absolutely. There's so much more. And so I'm with such kindness offering to my mom, like, Mom, listen, I respect the fact that you're in pain and you're trying to numb out. But when you're ready, and I'm not saying you have to be ready today. Don't be ready today, in fact, but when you're ready, I can help you at least decrease the drinking. But I really am concerned about the amount that you're drinking at your age, knowing how much you've drank and smoked all your life. I'm concerned for your internal organs right now. Knowing all that I've been through, and I'm half your age. Not half, but 20 years younger, actually 20 years younger. That's a lot of time, and I know what and I learned everything from watching you and Dad. So like, I know how to drink because you guys were good drinkers, you guys drank every day and you made it look like that's the normal. And so, I know, like I know where your body's at. And, I'm concerned because I'm seeing, I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. I'm concerned about what I'm hearing, and coughing every morning, coughing up stuff. Like, it was bad. And then I started noticing signs of dementia, and her mother had dementia, and that's ended up dying. That was one of the things that, eventually takes her into transition. And so my mom was concerned, and I'm expressing my concern, very lovingly and gently, and just letting her know, like, Mom, I just found out Dad died. I definitely don't want to see you go, like, let's I want to have some time with you, and I know how to help you. And I'm not saying you have to take my help, but I just am letting you know, if you continue on this path, this is not going to be a pleasant path for you. And that's going to be hard to watch. And she was receptive to it. She was like, I do need to quit drinking and I need to quit smoking. And you're right. And And I was just like, yes, like, awesome. Whew, I did not expect that to happen that fast. But what was horrible was the man she was with. He was encouraging her. He would literally come out with drinks. He would hear me and I'd tell him, can you not? Well, then I find out my cousin had come out with a book about being bipolar. And I find out that there's bipolar on my mom's side of the family. So this is just another thing to add into the generational traumas. And obviously we know any mental illness is brought on by stuck energy and trauma, So that for me went, well, that makes sense. That's what I'm seeing happening in my mom. That's what I'm seeing happening. That's what happened with grandma. That's why, that's what happened with certain relatives on that side. And my cousin was brave enough to come out with her own story, and good on you, props to Kate. That let me know. So it's interesting because when I was going through therapy, you have to talk about your history. And I was never able to I had no idea that bipolar existed on that side of the family because none of them wanted to accept that or see that in themselves. But so that became my normal. That became my baseline of people. And so when why did I date a manic bipolar for 10 years on and off? Because that was my normal. That was what I resonated with. Why did just so many different things. And, because it's interesting though, because I ended up seeing that that's what that relationship was supposed to mirror back at me. So constantly I would ask the therapist, they only diagnosed me back then as having CPTSD, complex PTSD, which, has a lot of symptoms that could cross over and look like other, illnesses. But yeah, that's what it was from having childhood trauma. And you just release that. It's not a big deal. I mean, it is what it is, right? Any illness. So I was never able to let them know that this was something, but I would ask them constantly, do you think that because I dated him that maybe there's something that I have some bipolar qualities? And so, but 8 different therapists tested me and it all came back no, so, which is interesting because I'm surprised. But that was the whole reason that it could have manifested into that for me had I not gone on my healing journey. I knew there was something more. I could feel it. It was one of those things where it was like, if I don't heal myself, shit's gonna get fucking weird. I was growing up with seeing all the weirdness around me. I just didn't know what it was called and know how to call it. It was called normal to me. And so the reason I get so detailed about all this is because I didn't know so much about my family. So 2 weeks into being down with my mom, her and her boyfriend are drinking all day long, and they would get so drunk where she's pass out drunk every night. It was disgusting and gross. It makes me nauseous thinking about it. And so one night she was so drunk and she doesn't remember this, of course. And that's the other part is when a bipolar person does get drunk like that, they are definitely not going to remember, but it's triggering something else that's because I dealt with this with the guy that I dated for 10 years on and off with the manic bipolar. Is you add alcohol into your manic moments, you black out, you don't remember anything. And so, this is not generalizing, but this is just what I've experienced. Okay. So, he comes. So I don't even remember what we were talking about. And it wasn't anything that we were fighting. That is for sure. But somehow in the conversation, she just winds up and whoosh, and tries to do I remember she actually had her hand in a fist and she winds up to try to punch me apparently. But it was this weird old woman, And like she almost falls like in the process, but and it way off, but I did kind of have to go like that. And the boyfriend's standing right there, and I'm just kind of looking at him like, what are you guys doing? Like what's happening right now? And then she just went off. And she's just jibber jabbering, and you didn't even know what she was talking about. And that's when I really recognized and went, hold the boat, hold the boat. That shit just reminded me of what I remember witnessing and experiencing time after time again with my ex who was manic bipolar. Oh my God, that's when I put the pieces of the puzzle together that I was like, oh my God, my cousin came out with the bipolar book. Oh my God, there's bipolar on my mom's side of the family. Holy shit, my mom has bipolar. Oh my God. And then I could like point out, like my mind went to all the people in the family that potentially had bipolar. And again, what that is, it's just when you hold in trauma and stuck energy. And that's what I had learned, is that there was a lot of trauma on that side of the family, as well as my dad's. So we had, incest on my dad's side. And then there was some sort of trauma that created this, so on my dad's side of the family, the incest manifested in a lot of physical and mental, because there was anxiety. And I'm sure my dad obviously was narcissistic. There was that stuff too, but like a lot of anxiety and depression, obviously, but it manifested itself physically in rheumatoid arthritis in most of the family, as well as polyarthritis. And then on my mom's side, whatever trauma, and she was quiet about it. She didn't, because I had asked her so many times, and something obviously severe. And when I say severe, like I have an intuition that there was something, more than just grandpa being, verbally and physically abusive, that there could have potentially been some sexual abuse, whether it be inside or outside of the family. And this is kind of speculation at this point, but with as bad, because what it manifested then up for them was mental illness. So generational trauma breaking physical and mental illness. Okay. So I start my journey with my mental and emotional side, and I complete it with my physical and spiritual side. So, the reason I'm really getting detailed about this is because it's going to become very, what's the word? It's just, this is a base. I need to give you guys a base of what I find out, because I did not know any of this. I was getting just bombarded with, what the hell was that? What? Oh my God, what was that? And so I thought I was just coming down to hang out with my mom. Like, what is all this? And so once I recognized that my mom has signs of, hardcore alcoholism, I am seeing the bipolar in her for sure. So now I'm very concerned about her drinking more so, because it only aggravates a person when they're in a manic moment. And that's exactly what I had seen her in. And that's what I had been noticing each night of drinking, when she'd get to the point of drunk, pass out, blackout drunk, I guess, is that she would hit her manic stage. And this is where these random things would come out, where she'd want to throw a punch out of nowhere, because these are the things that'll happen. Is this like basically she's in a free for all, and like her traumas are coming out of her. And, she could have been dealing with multiple personalities. Her boyfriend he grew up in that family that had that too. So, you get drawn to what what you grew up in, magnetizing, So I try to speak to her and him, and because I wanted to express to him, like, please, you have to respect the fact that, there's bipolar on that side of the family, and that's just how it works. It's not that Kate has it and that's the only person. No, this is unhealed traumas. You all haven't healed this, whatever trauma it is. And then that's when my mom tells me that her brother had experienced sexual abuse by like someone within the Catholic religion and the church that they went to. So that was why I kind of brought out what I brought out before, is somehow there was more sexual something potentially. And that would make sense then, where it's like, to me, that helps me have so much empathy for her, to go, oh my God, like she dealt with something that is, who knows? And she's holding it in, and this is what's happening. It's showing its ugly face in this mental illness and in these addictions. So I expressed to the boyfriend, like, please do not encourage her to drink. Like, Mom, I really need you to be careful. Like, you guys, you definitely should not be drinking these sugary shots every night. Like, I mean, you got to be careful. I started seeing signs of dementia because I could see her mind forgetting, like she would have conversations with me and then she was forgetting them completely and forgetting what we talked about. And I'd see moments where, like, she'd just have those moments of, where if you've known anybody with dementia, where it just looks like they're looking through you because they're just so lost, right? And so what had 5505, everybody. And so confirmation. So anyways, yeah, and he was just such a fucking dipshit about it. Like, I met your mom when she was drinking, and that's how it's just gonna be. Are you fucking kidding me? Who says that? Who comes into somebody's family and says, you know what? I'm gonna continue, allowing your mother to be sick, and encourage her to get more sick. Because that's what love is. No. I mean, that's what a narcissistic psychopath says and does. So this wasn't giving him brownie points, that's for sure, because he literally said this to me. And I was just like baffled, just flabbergasted, like, are you fucking nuts? And so looking back on this, like, it is comical. Like, I could not have literally thought of a better story than this. Like, this is something that I could have never made up in my wildest fucking dreams. So anyways, that's the moment where I'm like, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. How am I going to get back home now? Because at this point, I realized, well, this is the other part to this. I was realizing as well about this time that my mom, because my sister still had not spoken to me, but my mom was speaking to my sister. And I was like, Mom, why aren't you telling her what happened? Because apparently the con men, or this is what they're telling me, who knows if this is true, but the people who conned me, apparently they had maybe reached out to my sister and potentially conned her, or almost conned her or something. And she had maybe lost some money. I don't know, because I still don't know the whole story, because that's why it's probably fake, because my mom could never give me a complete story. But I'm like, Mom, why aren't you telling her that I was the one who got conned, and that if they're making it look like it's me, that's because that's what they do. And I'm telling you what happened, and that we need to talk, because if her and I can talk, maybe we could put some pieces of the puzzle together and we can somehow figure some good information to give, out to the public or to the police, or I don't know, to bust these dumbasses, And so my mom was like, and I'm just like, what's happening? Why are you, don't you want us to get along? Like, this is weird. This is where I realized my mom had been doing triangulation on me, my brother, and my sister, and telling her so false narrative was being told to me, to her, to my brother, to every family member. And this is where shit gets fucking weird, because this is where I was like feeling like how I felt when I realized I was being conned from the guy who conned me and then being gang stalked. Now I just put myself purposely into the middle, I don't know, of the hyenas. Like, yeah, the hyenas. That's a great, like, description of what this was, because they just wanted to ravage me. Like, I mean, not in a good way, right? Like, this was an attack of all attacks. Is all of a sudden, I'm not sure, like, what happened, to be honest with you, but my mom kind of turned on me. Well, we ended up making it to the second destination, and down in this state, and this is where we were going to stay till the spring. And I was just like, you know what, suck it up. When I get, I had actually started volunteering at the nearest animal shelter. I was dog walking to get away from them during the day so that I would have as little amount of time around them as possible, because I had realized that this was a very toxic, dysfunctional, just not good environment, very low vibrational. She kept wanting to take me out drinking, and all they wanted to do was drink all the time. Drink. Granted, I could go to a bar. I'm at a place in my sobriety where I don't give a shit. I don't want to drink like that. That's not, that's not the point. And so it's interesting because, like I said, I'd go to the shelter every day and dog walk. And it was so great because it was a way to stay high vibrational, right? And I recommend this for anybody. That if you're an animal lover, but again, animal therapy, if you're somebody who's trying to heal from trauma, is so awesome. And I am such a believer in this, and will somehow also be incorporating this into future creative projects, working with animals and working with people that, work with animals, because it's so helpful, and, it's just beautiful too. But anyways, it's like she didn't believe that I was going to do that. Like, I'd have to send her pictures of me walking the dogs on the beach. That's insane. You know what I mean? And so she's telling the family lies that I don't know, and that's exactly what I was doing. And when I wasn't doing that, I was exploring the town and, earthing and, just, still absorbing and trying to heal. Well, then I find out that my mom's camper has mold in it. So not only am I in a toxic energy environment, I'm literally in a physically toxic capsule, toxic gas chamber. And tried to talk to my mom about that, and she didn't want to hear it, and tried to fight it, and just wanted to keep me sick. And wanted to say that, I'm making this up, and just really started to get just nasty and evil. And I just started seeing this really evil side come out in her. And so when we made it to the second destination, I was still trying to use the dog walk and go to the animal shelter, but this particular one that was close to the biking distance, because I'd always have an e-bike to be able to get around, and that it just it had really weird hours, and so never had a chance to connect with that, but that was the intention. But at least had found really cool areas to go and explore, and just get out and just be in nature, and again connecting and healing. And I had to, once I realized that the camper was toxic, I had to do my best to stay out of it as much as possible so that I wasn't inhaling these toxic fumes, because it was making me sick again. And so I'm getting sick, and I'm getting more and more sick as the days go on. My mom attempted at one point to not only potentially maybe leave the guy she was with, because we started getting close, but I got her to also potentially start getting a fix, because we realized that there was a bunch of water under the camper that had been accumulating for months in this humid weather. Ugh. And it smelled like an outdoor John. And that's what was happening, is it was in the where the poop and the pee were being all cradled to. And it smelled shitty, especially when the air or the heat would come on. And they couldn't smell it because, they were drinking and smoking, and who knows whatever else was going on. But so what had happened was, all of a sudden it comes up till my birthday. So now we're into 2025. And I'm dog sick. I'm barely surviving. I'm having to go out daily because my mom, I just started going to buy my own organic foods, because I tried to get her on organic, and then, like I say, she just gave up, and she just went. She was like, haha, I'm not going to do this. In your face. It's in your face. You're the one who's going to get sick, but I'm going to continue to try to heal myself. And at that time period, I was actually talking with one of my aunts, one of my mom's sisters, who was coming down and was going to take me back up to our home state, and I was going to go and stay in the house. assuming that my mom was still okay with that, because why not? That's the house I grew up in, and why wouldn't you let your sick daughter, who you said could be, moving back in, go there? And but I had told my aunt, don't tell her, because I knew that there was going to be a weird explosion from her. I don't know why. It was just intuitively I felt it. So, and I had already gotten to a point where I had told that guy that I knew who he was and I knew what he was about, and I did not want to speak to him, talk to him. I wanted nothing to do with him. I thought what he was doing was really nasty, and he's sick and disgusting, and he should be in jail. And so he got my mom against me in the way that, if you've ever seen, it's that documentary that is Dirty John or something like that. It's like that. It's like where a con man gets that codependent woman that he's, grooming to turn on their whole family, even their own kids. Well, it did. I thought it was me trying to save my mom from him, but in reality, maybe he was the one who needed saving from her, because this day is where I see who my mom truly is on my birthday. My mom comes into the back area where I was staying, opens the sliding door, and I had been having to sleep in pretty late at that time because, again, I was sick, and when you're sick you have no energy and you feel like shit, so like it was later in the morning, and my mom comes in and the first thing she says, not happy birthday, is, do you want me to do your laundry? And she says so weird like that. And I just start bawling, and I'm like, Mom, no, I want to go home. And I had worked it out with my aunt, who she promised me she wasn't going to tell my mom, but that was going to come and get me, and because I wasn't feeling safe around that guy, I wasn't feeling safe around her, that she was acting erratic, and that I needed, but plus I was sick in that camper and I needed to get out. And but apparently I had noticed my mom's attitude changing 3 days previous to my birthday. So apparently that's when my aunt had said something to her. Because this is where my mom starts to really kind of pull away. And then, like I had mentioned, so she doesn't say happy birthday, would you like your laundry done? Or do you have any laundry to do, is how she said that. And I had said, crying, no, Mom, I want to go home. I don't know where home is because you're not going home to the home and, where our town is. So you just better get out of this camper, otherwise I'm calling the cops. I'm just like, I don't understand what's happening. I'm crying because I'm so sick and just want to go home and be safe. And she's threatening to call the cops on me for no fucking reason. This is literally what happened. And then she just storms out, because I'm like, Mom, why are you acting like this? What is happening to you right now? What is going on? Like, I'm like literally like I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone, right? I don't recognize who she is at all. She literally had like different eyes, like they were black at this time. And so one of the other things that I had found out from my aunt, who was supposed to pick me up, is that throughout my lifetime, there had been rumors about this other man claiming to be my father. I spoke about it with my therapist because I always thought it was weird. My aunt had a conversation with me that confirmed that, yeah, he is your dad. I was like, what? The dad that I knew growing up is potentially not my real father? Well, how much more shit can you add into this right now for me? For real? Like, oh my God. So when my mom had made this, I'm going to call the cops, as I'm crying and starts to storm out, I had said, does this have something to do with the fact that you haven't told me who my real father is? Then she just lost shit. Apparently that must have been when she called the cops. And yeah, I mean, I'm crying and I'm packed because I was like, I'm not trying to stay here, but I had no idea where I was going to go, because at this time I had been spending the little amount of money that I had left. And because I was trying to make any money that my mom puts into me as minimal as possible, because she just at that, I was just trying to, just do. And so had like maybe $500 to my name, nobody in this state. And sure enough, here come the cops. Like, and I'm balling and I am packing at the time because I'm thinking, yeah, but I was trying to get a hold of my aunt who is not picking up my calls. And I reach out to every family member and friend that I had been able to get my hands, my numbers that my mom had given me my dad's phone so that I could get numbers for all my relatives that I had lost, and this and that from the conmen stealing all their information. And yeah, so no, but not one. I think I talked to one person who was like, well, we don't live in this town that you live in anymore. But they had been hearing a false narrative, so they were acting weird towards me and assuming that I was this person that my mom was making me out to be. And she had said something that like I was a drug addict, living on the streets. And there was more, I guess, but like an intravenous drug user. And I'm freaking afraid of needles. Like I almost pass out when I get my blood drawn. So, I mean, it's like, seriously? Like, I mean, if you knew me, like, how would you even, what? Even my biggest of all the drinking times and my entire lifetime of drinking, I was always functional. Just like they were, because I learned it from watching them, right? I learned how to live like an alcoholic by watching them be an alcoholic growing up and being functional. So it was like, what the hell? And but this is why none of them, I have a large family. That's why I mentioned that earlier. That's why none of them were calling me back. Because of this false narrative that my mom had been putting out there about me. And I was just, I mean, to try to wrap your mind around that is disgusting. Like it took months to grasp all that. And I had to basically that night, the night of my birthday, the night of my 47th birthday, I'm sitting in this shitty, nasty, stinks like shit motel in a really bad part of town. And this town was shitty to begin with. It was like another armpit of the United States. Just this, I can't even it's like, this is the town you're choosing to do your snowboarding years in? Gross. But sorry. I don't mean to get into it like that. I'm not trying to put my emotions into it like that. I'm trying to be comical because you can only laugh about this, literally. I'm still trying to figure out a way to put this in comedy because this is hours of comedy in the making, right? I just have to learn how to present it better, huh? But yeah, so I'm trying to process in the shitty motel about the fact of, holy shit, my mom literally just called the cops on me for no reason on my birthday and is telling false lies about me to anybody that will listen to her, which is why my own relatives, when I'm literally crying on the phone for help, literally crying, saying, can you help me? And nobody's calling me back. Nobody's picking up. The one that did is like, sorry. Really? Wow, that had to have been some really good stories that had to have been being told about me in order to just deny somebody. I mean, if I had a stranger calling me in that kind of way, I would help a stranger even. My own blood wasn't helping. It was a lot to wrap my mind around. So I have to figure out what the fuck I'm gonna do. I'm down to $400. So that means maybe I have 4 nights in this shitty motel. If that, what am I gonna do? I mean, I'm fucked right now. Nobody's gonna help me. What the hell? My mom literally just let me spend all my money to throw me out to the curb while I'm sick because of her camper being mold infested that we got confirmed by the guy that came out to attempt to fix the problem and was like, well, you got a bunch of water here. Oh yeah, there's mold too. And so The cops literally put me in their vehicle, take me to this motel too, escort me out of this 50 plus, that's a whole nother story in its own, 50 plus community of people that are retirees. It's basically an insane asylum for the mentally ill codependent. And just stating facts, people. So I end up having to call, or the only person who offers to help me that I had a gut feeling about, but I didn't know what else to do, was a guy that I met in this 55 plus community that was more or less trying to hit on me, but he's like 20 years older than me. That doesn't matter. I just am not trying to date right now. That's not what my priority was. I was always very clear about this. I've been celibate, man, for like 6 years. So like, yeah, I'm not, and you're wanting somebody to cuddle with and have sex with, and it's not going to be me, man. And the more you try to push, the more you think you're gross. So come on, like be smart, man. So, but this is the only guy that's like, hey, I got free, or I've flown so much that I have, saved up enough tickets or points or whatever, and I can get you back to that state for free, basically. And I'm like, okay, well, once I get there, then, somebody should be able, if he would just let me stay there for a couple of days so that I could try to figure out, try to at least find old friends, because I had lost all their contact information because, all my social media and everything was stolen. And I didn't know if they had been attempted and, Eddie secondary scamming on from the guys that scammed me, as well as, what false narratives that had been, passing by their ears. So, but figured I'd have a better chance if I was in the state to try to reconnect and have somebody, see me and this and that. And so I get back, I finally, the guy does say, because my aunt just ghosted me, sold me out to the devil, and then ghosted me. So good times, right? Good times. And so I'm kind of forced. I'm like, I know that this guy is going to think that he has a chance if I do this, but I don't know what else to fucking do. This is called survival at this point. And so I take the offer and I get back to the state. And he obviously lets me, because we don't get until really late that night, and he obviously lets me stay at his house that night. And then I'm like, okay, well, here, I'm just going to try to reach out to people, and not one person gets back to me. I'm having a hard time figuring out how to find any friends' contact information that I felt I could try to, reach out to. And so what happened is I was in contact, though, with my brother still, my sister-in-law, and they were the dude ends up saying, you know what? Yeah, you can stay here. You can be my roommate. Why don't you just do that instead of you trying to, reconnect with your family? I mean, you can still obviously do that, but why don't you can stay here, which was a town next to the town I grew up in anyway. So, and I had actually lived in this town at one point. So I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. And it's only like 2-3 nights into that he tries to take all that back that he said, and was like trying to be all touchy-feely on me, and then starts to try to act angry on me. Like, if I don't give that back to him, then I basically have to leave. And I'm like, wow, like, you're literally going to put it's either sex or I get the fuck out sort of thing. I was like, you're fucking disgusting, man. Like, that's fucking rape shit, like, you should be ashamed of yourself at your fucking age. Like, you're gross, man. That's fucking predator shit right there. And so he obviously doesn't like that I'm calling him out on his bullshit. And so I'm like, I'm definitely not going to stay here. Luckily, that particular day that all that transpired, we were supposed to meet up with my brother and sister-in-law for lunch just to connect. And, and then it ends up turning into, oh, yeah, by the way, I had to leave that place because he he was going to probably attack me in my sleep at some point. And I definitely couldn't stay there. It's in the middle of winter in a really cold state. So I can't just like be out on the street. And could, but it would have been really fucking cold. And I think it was below zero for sure at that time. And so my brother and sister-in-law are forced to have me stay at their house. And that was not going to be an option for them because they did call out the mold issue in their house, which, by the way, was a huge issue. It was the worst mold house I had actually seen in all of the 9 with the camper that I had seen previous. Literally the fucking worst. This house should be condemned. However, the point is that if you have family, if you have a fucking couch or a floor and that person needs a place to stay, that's your family. You help your family out. But they barely wanted to do this, even with a couch. Because they did. They had a small house too. But that day, so my brother said, well, let me call mom. I said, good luck, call mom. And he called her, and sure enough, she pulled the same shit on him that she pulled on me. It was like, that bitch, if she goes over to the house, I'm calling the cops, is what she told my brother about me. And then my sister is encouraging her on this. Like, don't let her in, she's going to steal stuff. Who the hell, where's this coming from? Stop it with the false narratives, people. Like, I'm the one who had shit stolen from. I'm the one who had my identity stolen. I'm not the one that's doing this to people, you fucking assholes. So this is the story that's being told. And my story is the story that's true. That's the truth of what I've experienced. And again, I could not write a better story than this, right? So that night, because my brother realizes that my mom is a piece of shit, and we all start comparing stories, and I'm, telling stories that my mom's told me about my sister-in-law, which, I mean, she is her own narcissist and her own karmic in her own way, and she definitely is low vibrational and evil and very, judgmental and had very low self-esteem. And was definitely wearing a mask when I first came in because tried to pretend like she wanted to be the helper, but she was actually just trying to help instigate more drama within the family. And that's another whole story. But what had happened is that night they said, well, here, I guess you're going to have to stay here. Like, you could tell they didn't want this. And it's like, I never expected this from my brother because him and I were close growing up until she came into the picture. But she is so jealous that she was even jealous of family members being close to him. So I mean, even his own daughters. So let's go there. But so the thing is that they let me stay there that night, and one of my nieces, because they had 2 children, and I have 2 nieces through them, where I had met one before I had cut off the family. The other one, she was so young that she doesn't remember me. So it was really weird, for her to, who is this woman? Okay, she's your sister and she's my aunt, but I don't know her. I don't remember her. And I've heard all these lies now, and she doesn't know they're lies. And then I'm coming in trying to be who I am. And, this is really confusing, I'm sure, for her. But the oldest of the 2 was first year at college. So they said, well, here, you can stay in her room because she's up at school right now. And we'll just do that for a couple of days, until you can get things figured out, and I'm trying to reach one of my friends that, I figured would reach out back to me because we found her somehow through Instagram because she wasn't, I couldn't find her through Facebook. None of the family wanted to help, even with them speaking to them on my behalf, which was sad that my sister-in-law, someone who's not even blood, was trying to sit here. But that's the thing is, who knows what she was saying? Because again, she was also instigating these false narratives to make her look good too, So this is what narcissists do. And so anyways, they end up having me stay there. And basically what would happen is I would stay in my niece's room when she would be up at school. And then when she started coming home on the weekends or at times, I would sleep on the couch. I don't care. This is just what has to happen. At the time now, I'm trying to get jobs, to try to get money, to try to be able to, get my own place and be able to do me again in my own space. I don't want to be in their space. I don't want to be in this mold house. I know I'm going to get more sick. It's coming from another mold place. Universe is not letting me heal. Is how it's feeling. I'm like, why am I supposed? Because it makes these kind of situations harder when you're physically sick and you have nobody to help you. So I'm going to try to get this finished off here within the next 6 minutes. Okay. So if I talk fast, I'm sorry, but I'm already into this. So let's keep going. Hopefully it's intriguing enough that people are interested in still listening. So it's a total. So as the time is going on, I'm doing me how I would have done it the previous 6 years. I was doing it without being in the state I grew up in. I'm working and I'm healing. I'm working and I'm healing. I started seeing a therapist. I was seeing her 2 to 3 times a week. I would go to the library so I could get out of the house and not be there during times that I wasn't working, to give them space from me, but also to do my therapy in those spaces. And then part of healing is being outside, grounding. So I was constantly away from the house, trying, taking their dog, who they neglected hardcore. It should not be animal owners, but I would take the dog on walks to, help the dog get out, but then also to, get outside for me to, earth and be grounding and connecting and trying to release what I had just realized that, oh my God, my mom is not only bipolar, I think she's an undiagnosed narcissist. I see that I started reading books about emotionally immature parents, and I'm like, oh my God, that's them. And I'm like trying to unwrap the fact that I'm like, wow, I had no idea that is the life that I had been living and the environment that I had been living in, with the mentally ill parents that are narcissist and karmic. I just was so blind to this. I had to unwrap this as I'm getting re-sick again in a very extremely toxic mold house. I mean, it was riddled with black mold visibly everywhere. The bathroom was disgusting. Like, it honestly should be condemned. They all have some sort of illness, like celiacs or type 1 diabetes. I mean, figure it out. It's an inflammation, people. Like, if you're going to be parents, you gotta take care of your kids. You don't keep them in sick spaces. I mean, so if you're going to do that to yourselves, of course they're not going to care that I'm getting sick, and they're not going to see I'm getting sick because they're sick. They don't see it. And so it was hard, very hard. I had no support. Not in the way that I needed it. And so I'm getting more and more, I'm barely, luckily at that time, because this was my 10th mold house now. So I had learned how to survive in a toxic environment, and the most. And it was just enough, that I could survive. If I had experienced that in the beginning, it would have taken me down hard. And so that was one of the things I was like, well, maybe this is part of the journey. I'm supposed to learn how to, live in these toxic environments, to be able to, help others be able to learn how to survive through these toxic mold environments in the best way possible, because I definitely got that shit down. And I'll be having tons of videos about tips and tricks about helping people physically heal from all that kind of chronic illness, toxic mold, detoxing, and all that. So I'm getting more and more sick. I'm also releasing a lot of shit, because this really helped me put the pieces of the puzzle together when all this shit came out about my mom and a potential different father, and my mom being bipolar and having, all the addictions. And then I was just like, oh my God. And then some of the stories that my mom told, it was just, and that my aunt was telling me, and I was just like, oh my God. These are the pieces to the puzzle that I wished I would have had when I was doing therapy. And I'd tell the therapist all the time, I can't wait to reunite with my family, because I feel like the pieces of my puzzle that are now, becoming more clear I'll be able to put together. Yeah, I definitely did, but it was definitely a whole nother puzzle that was made once the pieces were put there. I was like, damn, that was my life? Whoa. Huh, okay. I don't know, like I see why I numbed out, like even more so than I already knew, like um so 3 months to the day 3 months to the day that I moved into my brother and sister-in-law's house, where I'm basically sleeping on the couch. There was a final night explosion that my niece actually started, because they started creating false narratives about me while I was there and saying I wasn't going to work and that I was doing all these things that I wasn't doing. Even though I was telling them everything I was doing every single day. Baffling. But to be able to experience narcissists like that in real time, it's true, people. Like this, I would never want to make this shit up. This is not a life people want to be proud of. This is just the life that is factual and happens. So I'm the truth teller. I'm the one that's putting the truth out about what I have experienced in my life. And that's what this is about. So my niece starts this fight with me this night while my brother and sister-in-law are at the bar gambling and drinking. And they come home because she ends up trying to make me feel bad for staying at the house. My niece is like making me feel bad. Older, her elder, and her aunt trying to make and talking down to me and making me feel bad about being in this house and sick and all this stuff. I don't know. Like, it was really a weird conversation. I start crying and she yells at me for crying. My 18-year-old niece. Like, I literally was like, what the fuck is happening? And then she leaves and goes and tattles, apparently. I don't know what about, though, because I'm the one who's crying. Like, she's the one who's made me cry. And she goes, and my brother and sister-in-law come home fucking hot. And I've never seen my brother upset, ever. And he starts yelling at me and basically like, you have 2 weeks to get out of this house, basically. And I was like, I don't even understand what just happened here. We had like, I don't know how that's going to happen, because I'm still trying to get enough money to be able to move out. And this is what's going on here. They were like, where were you the day we went in to try to come to your job and and you weren't there? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I love my job. I love going to my job. What day were you there? And they told me this time that they went there. It was 20 minutes before my shift. And they called me a name that I don't go by anymore, but that the owner's wife does. So when they refer to me in this name and go in and go, is so-and-so here? He thinks that they're talking about his wife, the co-owner. And they're talking about me. So he tells them, well, she's not here. She works over at this other location. And So they're like, why did you lie about you're not working? You don't work there anymore. What are you talking about? I love my job. I love going to my work. Also, when we figured it out from talking it out, I go, she's the one who works over there. She's the one who takes that store over. That's why she's not here. And they thought you were referring to her because they don't call me that name. You guys only do, because you're disrespectful and you don't call me what I go by. And then, on and on. And she's like, and you're gone all day. And I'm like, because I'm healing, and I told you guys I'm trying to get out of the house to give you guys space from me. And also, and I didn't want to say it to them, but I can't be in this toxic mold gas chamber because it's making me sick. So the more hours in a day I can be out of it, the healthier I can try to keep my body. I couldn't say that part because I knew that would have set them off, but it was the truth. But it was also that I was doing therapy 3 times a week, and I was out doing my healing stuff. I literally was telling them, I was like, why would you make something up about me when I've told you what I'm doing? I've never lied. Like, so why are you guys acting like I lie? And they set me off into a panic attack that night. because I had experienced that exact same thing, and I expressed this in a previous video. My mom and dad did this to me, literally coming into my work one day, long time ago. This is 25 years ago probably, and this is when I was a server. They came in, and I was in between a shift because I was working a double that day, and because they called when I was on my break, and it spoke to some random like kitchen worker who didn't barely speak English, I guess, and didn't know me. So it was like, no, I don't know, she doesn't work here, I don't know. And then so my mom and dad freak out, come down and create a scene as I'm coming back from my break in my uniform, getting ready to try to start my shift. Embarrassing and ridiculous. But again, karmic, narcissistic, dysfunctionally toxic, emotionally immature, right? And so my brother and sister-in-law are doing the same thing to me, and I had just told them this story too, like how ridiculous they were, and they agreed. And then so I said to them, I'm like, because they're like, my brother actually like yelling at me as I'm getting more and more into a panic attack. Why are you crying? Like, oh, that's good. Scream at somebody who you're giving a panic attack to, make them have more of a panic attack. Good job. Way to be supportive. And so he I forgot where I was gonna go. Hold on. So he said, why are you crying? And, I'm trying to, through a panic attack, trying to explain to him, because you've triggered in me what mom and dad did. Like, and I'm in hard therapy right now, trying to release all this shit that I just had to rationalize that mom has been doing, not just to me, but the whole family, our whole lives. Like, this is what healing looks like. And embarrassing for his wife, my sister-in-law, who actually went to school for psychology. Shame on you. Hey. And so he goes storming off up into his room upstairs like, I don't get, you're just out in 2 weeks. I mean, it's not that I want to stay here. I don't. I have no choice. And so my sister-in-law is yelling at me, and then after he leaves, though, she puts her mask back on. She's like, Mama, something about Mama Bear. You never speak to my daughter that way. I would never trying to ever be unkind to anybody. And the fact that you're trying to put that out there on me, shame on you. But that is not, and honestly, ew. Like, the fact that you want to think that about me, but that you're encouraging that, and you're like, I just was beyond words. And that night, something miraculous happened, because I said to her, because she goes, I don't remember what she said, but she was like, well, would you like a hug? Would that help you calm down? Because I'm in hard panic attack. I'm trying to get my breath, and I'm hyperventilating, and, do you want some of your medication and this and that? And like, she's trying to act like she cares. And because I need a fucking hug, and I've taken it from the devil at that point, which is what I was doing. So I fucking hug her, and I hold on so tight, because I was so like, freaked the fuck out. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm getting attacked from within. I just got done being attacked by my devil mother, and now I'm gonna see this shit from my brother, I've never seen get angry in his life, and he's getting mad at me for no fucking reason. And the instigator's instigating this. So I told, like, I'm through my tears and through my panic attack, I'm like, I will figure out a way to be up by tomorrow. I don't know how, but I'm just going to figure it out. And she's like, no, like, you can stay, until, at least until you can figure. And I was like, no. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you insane? You're going to treat somebody like that and assume like I'm just going to put up with that? Hell to the fucking no. She goes up into the room, eventually was like, are you okay? Tries to, again, like I say, tries to console as best as a narcissistic karmic can. And that night, I fucking sat there as I'm it took me a couple hours to calm down my panic attack after I took some medication. Because that was a moment I had to, because that one wouldn't have stopped. That was my final straw, where I was like, oh my God, my whole family is evil. Holy fucking shit. What did this happen? How did this happen? So, that night, I pray. I'm like, spirit team, source, higher self, please, 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 please send me a miracle. Send me a fucking miracle right now. I cannot be here anymore. This is not okay. This is not conducive to healing. This is the opposite. We need to find a solution so that I can leave this place by tomorrow. I have to. I cannot stay here another day. I mean, I'm praying all night until I fall asleep. I pray into my sleep. I cry and pray into my sleep. The next morning I wake up. I'm not able, like, I think I wake up before anybody else, or some people had left. And I'm on the couch at that point, and because my niece was there, and I had found out that they had actually started having her come back because they were hoping to, I think, have it push me out. Where it's like, I'm not staying here because I want to. This is not a choice. This is not a choice. And so, so you trying to push me out, that's not, I mean, that's just you being an asshole. And so the next morning, I'm like in mode. And I go into I'm just on a mission. So, I go get my morning cup of coffee, and I'm crying in the coffee shop, and I'm just like, what am I going to do? And end up talking, because I knew the owner really well, and, tell him the story. And I'm calling anybody I know, which is barely anybody. And these are basically strangers at this point, because I've known them for maybe a couple of months. And I'm like, hey, by the way, can I, spend the night or two or a couple of weeks on your couch? If you have an extra room for a second, like, I am in a dangerous situation and I need to get away from these very dangerous, evil people right now. And I don't know. I am reaching out to you because I literally have nobody else. Nobody. And, that's weird. They're like, whether they all had like reasons, but I'm sure it was like, also like, know you, too. But maybe it was just the reason too. But, and fair enough, like, I didn't expect it, but I just thought I had to try, so, and again, it's below zero. So being out on the road and on the streets is not an option. And so I ended up because I had to work that day. So it was like, I was going to try I worked every avenue I could possibly work to try to see about any place to stay, any place. But I really didn't have money for a place to put anything down, and barely had enough, maybe even for rent for that month. It was the end of the month at that time of the month in spring. It was actually April 25th, specifically 2025. And I went to this it was 20 minutes before I had to go to my job. And I was just all prepared, like, okay, I'll just go in there. But right before then, all of a sudden, I remembered that when I was in the previous state, that people would get help at times. I never had to utilize this, but I had heard that people could go to churches and sometimes they would offer low income or free housing to people in need. And so I thought, oh my God, there's a couple of churches that are within my biking distance at the time. And so I went to this first church, and he was like, we're too tiny, so sorry, And I remembered there was a church that was next to the library that I was going to daily. And this is the last place that I had time for before I headed into work. 20 minutes before work, I step into this. It was a Friday. I go into this church, and the only person that's there is the pastor. And he tells me that he typically is never there on Fridays. And he's like, it's interesting that he goes, I'm here. And I go, it's a miracle. And I go, so I ask him, like, do you have housing? And he's like, well, again, we're not big enough, but I do have some, food cards where I can get you almost pretty much $100 in groceries. And I was like, well, that's cool. Thank you so much. That's awesome. Like, anything helps, obviously. So I'm very grateful. And I was just about to walk out. And then he says to me, wait, hold on. Why don't you tell me your story? And so the story is, and we've heard it, and basically I condensed what I just told you in 21, 22 videos. And he ends up telling me that he has this house that nobody is staying in because he's living with his partner in her house in a different town, and that I'm welcome to stay there. He lets me stay there for like 2 months for free while I build up my, bank account. And during that time period, to know that a complete stranger was willing to help me in a way that my own family, and I had a lot of family members that could have helped. Just this stranger that didn't know me and heard my one time of hearing my story, and then also reached out because when we decided to actually make this more permanent, he had said that I had told him that I would connect him with people that I worked for and with in the previous state, because I had really good relationships with all of them. And they were always my references anyways and my friends. So I I said, hey, I just want to be able to let you know that I'm a good person and that I have people that can back this up. Even though you heard this story, this crazy fucking story about my psychotic family, that here, I'm a good person. And so it took a stranger having to reach previous other strangers that, knew me, though, because anybody that's not my family member knows that I'm a good, kind person with a good heart. But my family member wants to spread the opposite of that. And that's the definition of narcissist. And that's what narcissists do. So that has brought me up to the point, because then I had to basically, up until April, up until now, I've had to heal my body from the mold exposure that happened at my brother and sister-in-law's house. And remember how I told you previous, I had gotten that down to 2 weeks after an exposure? Their house was so bad, and I wasn't able to get it tested. I'd be scared to test their place, actually. It's disgusting. That it took me 3 months to start feeling to normal, where again, that's when you're healing from toxin exposures, doesn't mean you're at full capacity yet. It just means that you're getting your energies back, and you're feeling like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And it took me 3 months. The first time it took me to heal when I got sick took me 5 months. That gives you a time frame. Okay, that's how bad it was. I also was healing from the mental explosion that just occurred from rationalizing the nasty, toxic, dysfunctional, emotionally immature family that I had come from. That took a minute. To be able to wrap my mind around lots of anger that wanted to come out from that, because that is really hard when you're dealing with that, to wrap your mind around that. But what helped me through that was the fact that I remembered that my soul signed a contract to choose this family. I consciously, in my soul, chose this family. And I had to remember that I wanted to experience the lowest fucking vibration, so that when I could rise up to the highest vibration of unconditional love, that I would be so grateful and appreciate it so much. You have to learn how to be grateful when you're down here. And that's this whole journey. And the reason it's taken me so long to tell this story is because, do you see how this is full circle? Again, I could never have made up a story like this in my wildest dreams. I wish, but I guess I am, right? You're welcome, world. I'm so sorry that this has taken so long, but I figured I would just try to get the rest of this out, because you are watching somebody evolve into their highest version of themselves. I am in the process, people. I tell you that manifestation story because I have been manifesting things like this throughout. I tried to mention all the moments that I was able to manifest, right? And this is the universe trying to show me how powerful I was. Because I remember that day after when I spoke to him and he said, I'm going to get you out of that house. When the pastor says to me, I'm going to get you out of that house tonight because I know you're in danger there. To know that a stranger, like I cried when he said that, happy tears, like somebody fucking cares. And they're not blood. That's insane. So it was like sadness, happy tears, anger tears, like my own family can't even be as kind as this stranger is. And I forgot where I was going to go with that. Hold on one second. That's right. I was going to just say, it's one of those things where it's like, you have to realize that there's purpose in this, like I had to, everything happened in divine timing in the way that it had to happen. So I had to go down to that state to go stay with my mom, to experience, to see that my family, that I've grown up in this toxic family. And that's why I had been always magnetizing back to me these narcissists and these abusive people and these disrespectful people and these people that are unhealthy and unwell and toxic people and environments. All this was coming. The universe was like, here you go. This was part of your soul contract, that if you didn't see it from these moments earlier, that here were your ejection or moments that we had to be like, okay, bitch, if you're not seeing it, we're going to have to do something much more severe to you this time. And so I took the journey, the 27-year journey. It's a long time, and I can tell you that I'm in a space that I may not have much right now, but I have everything at the moment because I've got my health back. And when you have your health, you have it all. And I've mastered how to heal a body, both in human and in animals. I've mastered how to, release and not, react. I had to see this evil side in this way because I thought about it at first, like, what if I had just gone to my childhood home and not gone down to the camper with my mom and her boyfriend? Nope, this had to happen this way. It had to happen. The universe wanted this to happen this way so that I could wake up to because until I knew that this had existed like this, I was still allowing those cords, those energetic cords, to be attached to all my family members because I was still doing things to try to appease them and to please them. This is one of the reasons I held off on even doing this, because I was always afraid of hurting other people or saying things. And now, obviously, I don't give a fuck. Right? Because this to me was like, holy shit, they don't give a fuck about me. What? And that's all I've been doing is caring about their feelings and no. The universe was like, it's time for you to release them. And we're going to have to slap you really fucking hard in the face right now on this one. But this is for purpose. So there's so much good that's happening now. And like I say, I've got my health, I've got my mind, I've got, a good, everything that's non-tangible. It's not material. And that's when you have everything. I am grateful for everything I have right now. I am grateful for having survived through all that, because I can tell this story today and hopefully help somebody that might be struggling with a certain part of their story that could resemble certain parts of mine. Not the same context, but similar type. And if this resonates for anybody, first of all, I send you so much love, so much support, so much safety and protection. And if you're watching this, it's for a reason. It's because you're on the right path. And if you've watched it to this far and you're hearing me say these words, You are in a very good space. Even if it doesn't feel like that, I want you to know it's good. This is your sign. This is your confirmation that this is such a good, you're on the right path, and don't stop. And if you need help, if you need like just some words of encouragement, if you need a hug, comment and I'll figure out a way to get that hug to you. I am sending everybody so much love, so much gratitude. I thank you all for listening to my story, my truth, my timeline. I feel like I'm getting emotional and I'm going to cry. I think that this is what I needed to do to complete this part of my story, to put this part in my past completely so that I may continue my ascension and my ascension, rising into the highest version of myself. I just thank you all for taking the time to listen. If this resonates, like I mentioned, please comment below. Again, telling your story, speaking your truth helps not just you, but others, to let them know that they're not alone. And it's so important, especially for those of us that have gone through this really hard journey by ourselves, and we need that support. I'm in the process of trying to cultivate so many cool things to try to help people in these on these types of journeys. I'm working on ways to put the support out there to help others. So yeah, I'll just pay attention, and more to come and all that. But again, thank you so much for watching. I am sending so much love.